Starting. Okay, perfect. It says that we're live. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Coach's Corner. Those of you who are new to the group, I will introduce myself. My name is Penny Handsome. I'm a holistic health coach. And I don't do this very often, but I was having this conversation with my daughter about my credentials, our bios. Coach Lisa and I tend to really just dig into the topics more so than we do about ourselves. So I wanted to first welcome all of the new people who are coming into our group. It's really amazing to see how the group is growing. And a little housekeeping, if you're looking for something specific, you're going to find it above in the guides. So if you're looking for Coach Lisa's tutorials, live trainings from Wednesday, they're in there. Mine are also in the guides. You're going to find exercises in there. You're going to find all the recipes in there, our testimonials from our clients, and then the people that we have in our membership from our group coaching and our one-to-one coaching. And then every other resource that we feel that is beneficial to you to get you to where you need to be in your health and wellness journey. So its ultimate limit. So from a lifetime of abuse and trauma, the emotional and mental challenges turned into debilitating physical ailments like asthma, IBS, inflammatory bowel, adrenal fatigue, and exhaustion. So as my body kept breaking down, I kept searching for answers that made sense. So traditional eating and training just didn't cut it. And I knew I had to start tearing everything down to find out why I was physically and mentally suffering. So in 2013, that's when I had my own clinical diagnosis, and I didn't want to spend a lifetime on medications. So once I continued to search for answers that were right for me. And then I thoroughly studied the gut-brain connection. And I know Coach Lisa talks about your digestion and your gut health all the time. And I talk about the brain health and the mental health all the time because it's really important and because they really are connected. And then I also was studying how trauma gets stored in the body and how holistic healing can lead you towards living a healthy and energetic life. Okay, so everything that Coach Lisa and I do when we work with our clients helps them through their trauma. And I'm going to get into what that looks like for everybody because everybody has the same response. I don't have any. And I said that for a really, really long time too. It's like, I don't have any trauma, but I had epic amounts of trauma, right? So what we want to do is when you work through that and find the peace on the other side, and we work with a variety of techniques that range from positive reinforcement, static or moving meditations, building a value system, understanding acceptance and compassion for yourself, learning how to release the past hurts and the negative criticism, right? So that inner critic, I've talked about this numerous times, about how to let that go. So when we're actually finally able to focus on the newfound energy, that's what what matters most. So our families, the careers, the activities that we love, you want to be able to move forward through those. So, and again, like I said earlier when I started, is I had this conversation with my daughter, and she always kind of goes through our websites and everything, and she's like, Mom, people don't know what you do. So I have diplomas in fitness studies from Seneca, and diploma for holistic health and life coaching. I'm a second level practitioner in the clinical applications of behavioral medicine. I'm also certified lifestyle coach and nutritional counseling. So I leave all the really good nutritional stuff to Coach Lisa because she specializes in that. Also, weight loss and nutritional consultant. Again, not to the expertise of Coach Lisa. Also a level 3 personal trainer, a national strength and conditioning coach. Like I mentioned, a level 2 marathon and a level 3 triathlon coach. And both instructors, both in Ashtanga and Yin Yoga. And we're also, both Lisa and I are wellness retreat facilitators. So I've actually taken that a step further, and I've audited classes from Stanford University, Rhodes College, and the University of California on stress on the body, practicing mindfulness, secrets of sleep science, and the body-mind medicine connection, and more. So that's me. That's what I do. So welcome. So we're going to talk about the different types of, for this is because this is always a big topic for a lot of women, is like the types of weight loss blocks, right? So everybody comes to us all the time and they're always like, I want to lose weight, I want to lose weight. But it's not as simple as all that. The problem is there's so much more going on. And the problem is too, is when you're ignoring what that is and ignoring why the weight has come on, it usually comes from several things. So I've got all my notes so I don't forget anything. Is when we look at childhood trauma. Okay, and everybody's like, I don't have any. We're going to get into that. I'm going to get into what those traumas actually look like, okay? So then we have society anxiety. We have emotional eating. We have yo-yo dieting. We have bad relationships for food. So if you're starting to recognize what some of this is, you're going to see. So if we look at childhood trauma, that can come from anything from neglect, abandonment, ridicule, bullying, teasing, that sort of thing. So when we look at sexual abuse, it could have been a traumatic event or like for your family. And it could be, so when you look at a big T trauma, that is then something that we look at where it's a catastrophic event that has changed your life. And it's very, and then it imprints on you so that it's very difficult in order to make that change. Small T traumas, as I talk about all the time, are like a death of 1,000 cuts. So this could be something of, I fell off the swing at the playground. The girls in my class were teasing me. I was bullied. I didn't look like everybody else, or I don't feel the same as everybody else. So they, teased me relentlessly. I was ignored. Like those are things. And then when they add up and it's like compound interest. It adds up over time so that you think that it's like not a big deal. But the reality is it adds up to be a very big deal. So sometimes the small T traumas can actually be worse in the long run than something that's a catastrophic event. Because what happens with a catastrophic event, and I'll use myself as the example, like when my son went in the hospital for 3 weeks and then we had to make the choice to take him off life support, that's a catastrophic event. So people recognize that. So then, of course, it's like you go into therapy and you've got like, people who understand and people are like, okay, and like they have sympathy and there's support and they're there for you and they see it. Small T traumas, you don't see them every day, but they have an impactfulness on your life, especially if you're a person who's like, very sensitive, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. If you're vulnerable to that, people take advantage of that. So, I'm not saying don't be sensitive, don't be vulnerable. I think everybody should be both, but it's also being guarded to understand how those effects come into play when you have more empathy for a lot of people. So when we look at that, like your society anxiety that comes from like being bullied, ridiculed, ignored, teased, embarrassed, the doom scrolling, right? I talk about the doom scrolling all the time. The emotional eating, and a lot of people, most women have this, right? So it's coming from being abandoned, unsupported, lack of interest, lack of patience, not being believed, growing up. Those things also turn into shopping, smoking, drinking. Okay, so anytime when you look at, and we're going to get into this, when you look at what an addiction is, people are like, I'm not addicted. But if you're walking around saying, oh, I need that, that's classified as an addiction. Okay, how many times, and I'll use this one very quickly, we'll come back to it. Oh, I need my coffee. It's a habit. It's an addiction. It stems from trauma. Okay, so let's look at also the yo-yo dieting. And I know in this group, I'm sure there is 100 women at least, so that's 1/7 of our group, who have gone through yo-yo dieting. I am one of them. I most certainly have done that over the course of years. So that's from, being harassed mentally, sexually, overeating, which comes from neglect. Okay, so if you felt neglect or, abandoned, unsupported growing up, you're looking for something. I will tell you, When you've gone through grief, also it's another trauma that hits, and people just like brush it off. It's like, oh, it's just grief. Oh, it's just stress. These are huge factors. Like we throw these words around like they don't mean anything, but they really do take a toll on the body. And until you stop and really look at the stress that is accumulated in your body, along with the grief, along with anger, along with fear, along with your anxiety, along with depression, these are huge things that people like to just brush off. It's like, oh, it's no big deal. I'll just have a glass of wine. I'll be fine. Anytime that you actually, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie The Italian Job, Mark Wahlberg. So great. Seen it like 100 times. The definition is like fine, freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. So no one's ever fine, right? If your answer is I'm fine, you might want to dig into why that's your response, okay? So when we're going to look at how these traits show up, right? So looking at dissecting how this affects the body. So when we look at the negative traits that show up, we're looking at anger, greed, which turns into excessive shopping, right? How many times, I don't know about you guys, but I've lived most of my life with a bunch of clothes in my closet that have tags on them. Or I wore it one time and it was like, well, it didn't bring me as much joy as it did while I purchased it. Okay, so shopping is a huge one for people. When we're looking at anger and the greed, it's like binge eating is another. Shame that comes up for a lot of people. And then what happens, the problem is when you have shame, you have blame. And when you have blame, you blame yourself. And then there's the guilt. So that all goes into your emotional, like your self-esteem, your self-worth, self-control. Okay? You have all of it inside of you. Your self-worth is there. It's perfect. I say this all the time. We're trying to be human, not perfect. You are perfect in who you are as a human being. But the more that you hold on to this stuff, the harder it's going to be to let go, because you're like, I don't have anything I'm holding on to. In reality, all of these things do. So we have jealousy as another one. Now, when we talk about jealousy, it's about the relationship so for an example, let's say your husband and your daughter have a great relationship, like better than the relationship you have with your husband. So that's jealousy, because you're jealous of the relationship between those two people. Envy is about property, right? So if somebody's got like a great Louis Vuitton bag and you're looking at it going, oh, I really want that. That's envy. Okay, that's two different things. So jealousy is about a relationship between people. Envy is a relationship of product and materialistic things. Okay, so we're going to our words matter when we do this. So fear. We have a lot of people they fear moving forward, or they're angry. Anger comes from fear. So if they're holding on to a lot of anger, it's because the fear, and they don't want to let that go, because then they've got nothing to hold on to, or so they feel, right? So when we look at that, that's usually rooted in a past trauma, and that's where we get the feeling of I'm stuck, with the constant chatter of I can't, right? How many times have you looked at something, oh, I can't do that, opposed to I can figure it out. Yeah, I can do it. I may suck at it in the beginning, but that's okay. But that's also the fear of looking stupid when you're doing something, right? Like I'm constantly learning stuff. Coach Lisa is constantly learning things. We've had to learn how to market. We've had to learn what the go through Instagram. How do we maximize what we do? It's like life in itself is just about learning, right? So if you're constantly living in fear, think of it this way. Your fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. So you can step into the lake and you're still only right up to the ankles. You're not going to drown. But you can walk through the fear to the other side to prove to yourself that you can do it. But this is also rooted in past traumas of our childhood that, are preteens, and we look at that from age 10 to 13, and everybody's like, oh, you can't do it, or anytime you try something new, you get ridiculed, you'll get teased, you get bullied, right? So these things land. think of them like, what is that game, like that paintball? So if you shoot a paintball and every time somebody teased you, you get splattered with a paintball. How many times in your life have you been teased, ridiculed, felt unsupported, neglected, abandoned, all of these things? Like, how many times can you think of, and like how many paint spots are going to be all over your body? We don't want to be covered in paint spots. We want to let those go. So the other thing that also shows up, and this is where the traumas show, is like your perfectionism and the judgment, right? So perfectionism is like, being rejected or neglected growing up. This could have happened in your early 20s too. This still holds true as you pull it forward. Judgment. It's usually when you're ridiculed and criticized and judged growing up. So what's happening is like you've been judged, you've been criticized. So then you judge yourself and you judge everybody else around you. Okay? So these are the things in trauma that are connected to how you're looking at getting a result. Okay? So Coach Lisa says this all the time. Your weight loss is just a symptom of the root problem. And everybody comes in and goes, oh, but I just need to lose weight. Okay? That may be true. But let's look at some of the other symptoms that show up. And, I gave my insights of where I was, all the issues that I had, on top of like my diagnoses from the psychiatrist when I went after my son died, was complex PTSD, traumatic grief, depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. And the only thing, and that's what I talked about, like, I didn't want to be on medication. Not that I haven't tried over the years. There was like some big fails. I was on sleeping pills for 18 months after my son died. Night terrors, nightmares, like it was endless. But you have to go through the process of cleaning all the stuff out from the root problem, which was my sexual abuse as a child, and neglect and abandonment from my parents. No shame against them. They did the best that they could, but it's still felt, right? We can analyze it all we like. We can rationalize it all we like, but there's still emotion attached to that, and that sits in the body. So these are some of the ways that your trauma is showing up in your body: IBS, inflammatory bowel, allergies, autoimmune disease, right? Like rheumatoid arthritis. What's the other one? I can't think of it right now. Anything that has to do with our breathing. COPD is another one. Thyroid issues, chronic pain. Do you have like chronic back pain, chronic shoulder pain, chronic pain in your hips, insomnia, stubborn weight gain? And the more you fight with this, without looking at the root cause, the longer it's going to stay. We look at allergies, asthma, cancer, diabetes. All of these are things that come from trauma. They can all be reversed. 100%. But you got to put in the work. Okay? So another way we look at this stuff is how our moods. Do you carry a lot of anger, anxiety, depression, lack of joy, lack of patience, the joie de vivre, right? You're just like, you're one of those people that just lives through the weekend, but in reality, when the weekend shows up, you're just so tired, you're like, I can't. Or you go on vacation because it's like, I need a break from my life. Okay, so vacations should be enhancing your life. Then that shouldn't be an escape from your life. Okay, so when people are like, I don't have any trauma, I just listed all of the things, how our emotional connection to the physical connection to the root cause. Okay, so when we look at that, that's what we want to look at. So then, also another one I've got a note of, like extreme highs and lows, right? Anxiety, depression, extreme highs and lows. Your anxiety is that you're living in fear of the future, and you don't know what that is. The depression is that you're living in the past, and it's over. You can't change it, but you want to live there. This is where I talk about people creating their own drama cycles. They create a story. Right? I did this 2 weeks ago, and I talked about, are you living in the story that you're telling yourself? Now, the story you're telling yourself is from your past. They're your memories, but they're your perception of it. And then we always like to paint the picture better for ourselves, so we kind of like, your memory will change that. That's a scientific fact. Your memory will change everything so that you feel good about what you're talking about. Because in reality, it doesn't matter anymore because you're hanging on to that, which doesn't allow you to move forward, which is why we get stuck, right? We talk to women all the time. They come in and do a call with us and it's like, oh, but I've got all these things. And then we're like, okay, we'll talk about the trauma. I don't have any. Well, I've already explained what the big T and small t traumas are. Everybody has trauma. Everybody. But if you keep separating the emotional connections and separate it from the physical ailments, there's no, if you're not connecting those two, you're not making progress, right? So women are like, oh, I've been trying my whole life. I've been doing it my whole life. But if you're honest with yourself about really the amount of effort you've put in, you would be farther along. And that's harsh, but true. So when we look at what our addictions are, I mentioned this earlier, it's like when you walk around and say, I need my coffee. I need my caffeine, right? And then people are like, oh, I don't drink coffee. Okay, but you drink tea. It has caffeine in it. You eat chocolate, like it's got caffeine in it, right? Anytime you need that boost or like, oh, I need sugar. I have a sweet tooth. I'm sorry. That's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's a thing we make up to make ourselves feel better. Nobody has a sweet tooth. What you have is an imbalance in your gut health. What you have is an imbalance in candida. What you have is an imbalance of what you're eating. Too many carbs, not enough vegetables, not enough proteins. Like, right? There's that imbalance. When you have an imbalance, it then creates other issues, right? So when we look at, all the other addictions that we have is like TV. We've got social media. We have smoking. We have eating. There's porn in there too. I know. Running in debt. Constant, right? So that's its own drama cycle. That was mine, by the way. I like to enjoy a cup of coffee. Great, no problem. But when you need to do it and you're compelled to do it and you can't answer the reason why, that's a different story, right? That's a difference. So I've already talked about what the big T, small t traumas are. So I want to leave you with this. If you guys are having issues and you're unsure about where to go next, you have absolutely every requirement in your own self to expand on why you do what you do. So we're so used to hiding behind the screen, hiding behind we're okay. Women do this all the time. It's like, oh, I'm fine, and putting everybody else first. Okay, so that is also an addiction. When you live with the badge of honor of I'm so busy. Oh, look at all the things I do. It's also an addiction, which I talk about like the drama cycle. So when we look at all of these aspects of life and why women come to the, it's always the same thing. Because listen, the diet industry isn't $1 trillion for a reason. There is no quick fix. And this is why Coach Lisa and I put together our coaching program, our group coaching, or a membership. It's all the same format. It's just whether or not you need more help or less, or you can do it on your own. The membership is all about, I know I can do it, I just don't know what to do. And this is where a lot of people get paralyzed because they're like, oh, I can figure it out for myself. Okay, but if you've been trying to figure it out for more than 6 months and you haven't got it, then this is where guidance comes into play, right? So this is the reason why Coach Lisa and I put the program together the way we did, because this was a massive gap that we felt and we've seen over the past 27 years. Women go in this cycle, and you get in this vicious cycle of oh, there's a wedding or summer vacation or a holiday. I'm going to lose weight. Boom. Okay, then you go to the wedding, the vacation, the summer holiday, whatever, and then you come right back and you redo the exact same habits. Okay, so what we're looking to do is allow you to become the person and adapt the lifestyle that makes the change permanent. Okay, so if we're not looking at all of the mindset stuff, and the healing that goes with that, it's really difficult to make that change permanent because you're still holding on to the person that you were. Okay, and that's my job. That's what I do. I help people identify where all these little triggers are and all these little things are inside your body and inside your mind, and we explore and heal and move past them so that you then become the person that adapts the lifestyle, hence the permanent results. The weight comes off. When the stress comes down and all the healing happens and you change the mindset, the weight comes off. But you have to embrace your entire self, mind, body, and soul. I hate using that statement, by the way, because it's so overdone. It's like nauseating, actually. But it's true. The connection is so big. When you've got a lot going on up here, it's very difficult to see a path through because you've got so much chatter and so much noise and trauma and all the stuff that's going on. And if you're a person that's been hanging on to like negative emotions, you have no clarity because there's no room in there. You know, like we talk about, setting up a morning routine or an evening routine. For a lot of people, that's really overwhelming. And the idea is to move past the overwhelm, move past that, all the fear, move past the anxiety into the plan that gets you clear, mind quiet, and then your body actually responds to that when the stress levels come down. But until that happens and you're running and hiding, with that drink every night or I gotta have a drink. Oh, it's Friday night. Oh, I gotta treat myself. It's another addiction. When it comes into, I need this. So I want you guys to think about that. You guys, if you need journal prompts, because this is one of the things we start our clients with is journaling. Most people don't want to do it. I will tell you flat out, without journaling, it's very hard to make the changes that you're looking to make. So if you need some journal prompts, we have those. You can comment journal below and I will get those out to you. If you have any questions or comments about today, and how the different types of weight loss blocks that you have, and understanding that binge eating is not a choice, it is a trauma response. Okay, guys, that's me for this week. Sorry, that went long. It's a good 30 minutes going on here. I hope you got a lot from this and a lot of understanding, A, about yourself, and B, what Coach Lisa and I do with our coaching programs and how we move our women along into permanent success to see results week after week. And if you want to book a call, then just comment below and we can get you in and book a call and see where you're at and see if our program is something that can help you. All right, guys, have a great weekend.